to Joel Skousen, the editor of World Affairs Brief. I like him a lot, very much. And by the way, we have a common friend, a real dear friend. Herman, okay? I don't think he wants me necessarily to expand beyond that, but let's do this. We had you on a month ago. You said that Brexit would be a big deal. I said, nah, they'll survive it. All right, what do you say now?
Well, it certainly was a shock for the establishment. This is the first major defeat ever for the globalist juggernaut as it's pushed for tighter and tighter, global type governments like the EU. It's the crown jewel of globalism. And for a major state like Britain to vote barely to leave is a major, major victory. We're not sure it's going to turn into a victory ultimately. They can still sabotage this under a variety of ways, but this was a shock. Everybody went to bed last Thursday night thinking that the Brexit had lost and woke up the next morning and it had won by a full 1.5, almost 2 points.
Yes, it did. And by the way, you were talking about London not voting. They had bad weather. You had a 70% vote. I doubt the American election, this sham, is going to get 50%. That was a pretty widespread vote.
Well, it was a very, very important vote, but that heavy rains did deter some people. I don't think it deterred any of the pro-leave campaigners from voting, but many of the mainstream people, because they went to bed thinking it was a done deal that it was going to win, that's one of the reasons why I think their vote wasn't as high as it should have been, according to the polls.
I think it was pretty good. Okay, I think it was reflective, all right? Now, that assumes, first of all, your analysis, I don't agree. I don't think that people knew they were thrown off the shackles of globalism. I think they were just having a bad deal at home and decided to vote against. I don't think they saw the broader picture.
Well, perhaps not as broad as what I see it, but clearly the reason they voted against the Brexit was the interference of the EU, the arrogance of the EU of just telling it this is the way it's going to be and you got to lump it because you're part of the EU. I mean, it's the control type laws that controlled religion, it controlled culture, it controlled what you could buy or sell, what you could charge for it. I mean, it wasn't just the economy, it was the fact that it was control way far away from home, and people really don't like that. I've always predicted that that's why the boiling the frog slowly won't work. That's why they have to give us war eventually to force people into a global government, because people get tired of the hassle of dealing with Washington, D.C. or dealing with Brussels. And
well, if they allow an honest election, really, the British government didn't have to have a special vote, did they?
Well, you've got to remember that the Conservative Party leaders have promised for over a decade to have a vote, and they keep stalling, and they've been stalling. In fact, in order to get elected this time, Cameron had to promise, hard, fast promise, to hold a vote, and he went through with it. The reason why they weren't able to steal this election is they had paper ballots. This was not an electronic vote.
Well, you got to explain that. What difference? Okay, let's say you didn't have paper ballot. Then it would be rigged?
Yeah, I mean, electronic voting is extremely easy to rig through software, and you can have that software be removed after the election so it can't be traced. It happens all the time in the United States. In the last election, the U.S. made 8 to 10 million votes disappear in order to defeat Mitt Romney from winning over Barack Obama.
Well, that's a major claim here. Really?
Let me explain. It's very simple.
Okay.
The official figures from the federal government, remember this is the first election, 2012, where the federal government tallied all the state votes. And so no individual state would know if it was their votes that were shorted. But the official figures show that 8 million less people voted in 2012 than 2008. And the official explanation, of course, is there was less enthusiasm. Can you believe that, Barry?
I wouldn't go vote in this election.
No, look,
I'm not
the point is the electorate was much more energized in 2012. Nobody wanted John McCain. He was an establishment hack, a phony POW that really wasn't.
Presidential candidate that appealed to every man in America, but she happens to be basically an idiot. There were factors going on here. All right. You know what I'm going to say? What you're claiming is that because they were old-fashioned votes on slips of paper, it turned out, despite trying, it turned out to be fair. It wasn't rigged.
You can't hardly rig. It's very difficult to rig without old-fashioned ballot stuffing, and you have all these political parties watching the process in Britain. Very difficult to rig. There was a video of one poll worker erasing an answer because they handed out pencils, believe it or not, instead of pens. So the votes could be fudged. But, how long would it take to fudge, several million votes? It would take forever, and that's just not going to happen.
You have a lot of conspirators on this one, okay? In short, you're saying it was a fair election.
I am, yes.
All right. Except for one thing. They went and knocked off Joe Cox.
Well, yeah, we're not talking about fairness of election. I'm only talking about ballot counting. Sure.
All right. You went and knocked off Joe Cox. You're saying to change the point of view of the electorate. It
was to poison the Brexit vote. To basically say, if you're for Brexit, you're for violence, you're for these racists. They throw around the racist thing. This is not racism. Just want to stop immigration just because it happens to be Muslim. I mean, there are many reasons that don't have anything to do with race. This is a cultural thing, not a race thing. But they love to throw the racial epithet around. But Joe Cox, I'm convinced, was killed by a mentally unstable person that the government put up to it, and to say the words, Britain first, in order to poison the vote. And it showed, in the polls at least, that it did have some of that effect. But ultimately, it could not overwhelm the fact that in Britain, just like in America, people are so fed up with the establishment, especially the conservative establishment. The Tories have been betraying everything they've said. They were in lockstep with the Labour Party in Britain, and the electorate wasn't going to have it this time.
All right, first of all, I want to add, pissed, I agree with you. All right, it was a highly timely murder, okay? But not many of us view the world this way.
Well, anyone who knows the history of Israel knows that it's besotted with conspiracy, and anyone who knows the history of the world, I mean, every major incident, every major war, there's a conspiracy involved in promoting and furthering that war. And every major president that's been assassinated, there's a conspiracy behind it, including Yitzhak Rabin, of which you are the champion of the true story.
I'm so, you know what, I'm going to, first of all, point to the fact that Donald Trump arrived in Aberdeen to play golf. Was that, a coincidence? Was that in any way planned? I mean, why did he do that?
Well, it was planned a couple of months in advance. He actually ended up not knowing very much about the Brexit, so it couldn't have been planned to coincide with the vote. He didn't even know, when he was questioned by the media, about the fact that Scotland was threatening to hold another independence vote. They kept asking him, and he turned to talk about golf. He just didn't understand what they were asking. So he really was clueless about this until he arrived and got a briefing after the press conference.
It wasn't in time, okay? It was very, very bad for the belief that this man is in some way in touch. All right, let's go. It doesn't matter. I've given up on that election. I don't care about either of them. And frankly, I'll bet you I'm not alone.
No, I'm sure you're not. I'm very discouraged too, even though I think at best Donald Trump may slow down the globalist agenda because he has spoken out vehemently against the TPP and the TTIP, globalist trade agreement, says he's going to renegotiate NAFTA. I mean, those are major globalist crown jewels, and he could really put a monkey wrench in that. Now, I think he's going to give in when it comes to foreign intervention. He can be snookered with the phony terrorist plots, just like most other leaders. So I don't have much hope that it'll stop the war, the phony war on terror, but he certainly would, I think, put a monkey wrench in the globalist trade agreement.
Bet you he wouldn't. But that's between us personally, okay? All right, let's go back to, I spent the day reading you, and it's pretty good analysis, folks. And by the way, Joe, once again, before the show began, my computer was once again massively hacked. I just want I want the world to know that we're being noticed. All right, now let's go into this. What is Article 50? What is it? Why don't we invoke it?
Well, Article 50 is a problem. It's a trap. Basically, it's a 2-year delaying trap. In essence, Article 50 says that anybody who leaves, any nation who wants to leave the EU, has to enter into negotiations with the EU, and they can take as long as they want. Only the EU can agree to the negotiations. The leaving country has no rights other than to sit at a table and try to negotiate with the EU. And if at the end of 2 years they don't come to an agreement, only then can they leave the EU. Until then, Article 50 says they are bound by all treaty obligations, including all the intrusive laws that the people don't like in Britain.
All right, let's go through. Why can't Britain, since they did, in fact, now it's still, a bit of a debate, but a massive number of Britons want out. Why can't they, unilaterally get the hell out of there?
They can.
Why not?
They can. They don't have to invoke Article 50. And in fact, Boris Johnson, the leader of the Brexit group, said, we're in no hurry to invoke Article 50. And then the EU turned around the same day and said, we want you out right away, sooner rather than later. So it appeared as if they could do this unilaterally, Britain saying, we're quitting, and start trade negotiations. But this is the thing. If they do break with Article 50, it means the EU can play hardball with them. The EU doesn't have to agree to anything. And I still think that Britain has plenty of clout. EU has to deal with Britain. EU wants to travel to Britain. So Britain has clout. I think they ought to unilaterally say, we're not going to mess with 50 because we think that it would take a full 2 years if we get any agreement at all. We'll take our chances with straight informal negotiations, and we're getting out now. That means we don't have to obey any of the EU laws starting tomorrow. That's what they ought to do.
Okay, folks, I don't disagree with anything. All right. Now, just so you know, Joel, I hate to do this. My computer just went down, and it's now, well, I can start Windows normally, this, that. Boy, oh boy. Did you know that somebody is really watching me? Did you know that?
Well, of course. I've been with you long enough to know that you're enemy number one of Israel. And Israel has a lot of clout with the CIA and the U.S. government.
No, I'm not. You know what? What I'm doing is what has to be done eventually. Eventually, the Jews have to face what Israel was when it was started and the works. We can't avoid, and I'm not alone, by the way, far from it. I brought up the business that the Labour government, that is the last remainder, I guess, would be Shimon Peres, okay?
Yeah.
But the fact is, they didn't give a damn about Jews. They used Sephardim as guinea pigs. You
That's
can't
right.
avoid this movies, this testimony. You can't avoid this anymore.
Well, I know you're not alone in the fight, but you're the one who's had the courage to expose the conspiracies of government violating the law, killing a prime minister, and doing many, many other things, killing Jews, killing children, selling them as slaves. I mean, you've exposed it all, Barry.
I don't know why, but, you know, when the truth comes out, you know what? I'm paying the price, okay? Just so you know, we have a show against all odds, okay, against the works. Let's go on to what I read of you today. Let's go and do it. The rest of Europe is planning, a good chunk of Europe. This could be a snowball, okay? In short, this could be a snowball. Other countries wanting out. Give a little scenario, would you?
Well, there's, movements on both sides. Ireland, for example, wants to leave the UK. Scotland wants to leave the UK and stay within the EU. But Spain is thinking about breaking with the EU. The French National Front Party, which has won the highest number of seats from France into the European Union, wants out. Marie Le Pen has promised that if elected as prime minister, she's going to allow a referendum. The Netherlands has a referendum that they're talking about. So this could be, in effect, several of the former Soviet states have the most to gain from staying in the European Union in terms of financial aid and otherwise. But Poland is considering, and even there's a German movement to get out of the.
Oh, that would be great. Are you joking? Look, you brought up the issue, and we will talk about the refugees, okay? Without Germany, they had nowhere to go.
That's right. And Merkel has been the biggest promoter of refugees. And Germany has been the worst about free speech in the entire EU. They have a law that it's a crime, a capital crime to deny the Holocaust or even a portion of it. I mean, I don't deny the Holocaust, but clearly some of the facts are in dispute.
Wait, don't go in there. You don't deny it one bit. And
that's what I said, Barry. I don't deny the Holocaust, but I'm just saying some of the facts are in dispute. But if you even dispute any of the facts, whether it's the 6 million or how many people were gassed or to what extent gas chambers were used, if you dispute any of those things, you're locked up and they throw away the key in Germany. You can't homeschool in Germany without going to prison. I mean, this is a totalitarian state that would make Hitler proud.
Okay, you know what? Believe me when I say I have plenty of problems with Germany, okay, plenty. And it doesn't matter. The fact is, you know what? If I were Britain, I'd hold on to my pound. I wouldn't accept the euro. I wouldn't go back to my wartime enemies. And that's what they're saying, and that's how I'm looking at it. All right. You hear me?
Well, the biggest issue, of course, is the unlimited immigration issue. And and here's what the kicker is, that in these negotiations, the EU is basically going to try to force Britain to accept by negotiation all the things that the people want out of the EU for. In other words, if you're going to have allow import of workers, you've got to allow, according to the EU, the unlimited import of refugees, and you can't say no in your own border controls, and that's one of the reasons that Britain has to set up their own border controls fairly rapidly. There's a huge refugee camp in Calais, France, right outside the Channel, and France is threatening basically to unleash all those refugees and make Britain throw up their own border controls to stop them. It's kind of an interesting...
I would think the issue number one, all right? And not so much we're going to defeat globalism, we're going to stop Muslim refugees from coming into hundreds of thousands. I would think that would be, if I were going to vote last week, that would be first on my list.
Yeah, I think it was. But people, you've got to remember that the top, Nigel Farage, has said, talked about globalism and the EU and what it represents. So has Boris Johnson. So the people have started to become educated in the threat of global government. And one of the things that came out today was there was a leak from the EU talking about because of the British exit, they're now planning, to put in another treaty, superstate type of thing to stop the rest of everyone from leaving. And you're going to, from now and into the future, have, I guess you can't have your own standing army. It's going to be an EU army. That's one of the things they're proposing.
Okay. You believe that? That Britain will be joining their French compatriots in a global army?
What I'm saying is that that's what they're trying to impose on the rest of the nations in the EU. And if that leak ever comes out, the British will be even more convinced that it was the right thing to leave.
Listen, one thing for sure. By the way, there was a recovery in stocks and dollar prices.
Today.
It's a good day. They recovered from yesterday, but still there was a terrific crash. Why? Why was there a crash? Why would people's investments be affected by this leaving the EU?
Well,
gosh, Joel, prepare that. By the way, don't get me wrong. I appreciate you enormously, but boy, oh boy, if you knew the week I had. There, I got it out. All right, prepare that one. Why on earth should there be a crash? I mean, I've been dreaming of...
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the left behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Hi, folks. You. All right. First of all, I book. .lu.com. You'll see a search box right in my last name, Chamish, Chamish. Apparently, David Cameron is doing his job again. My website is www.barrychamish.com. Joel, plug yourself first before you tell me why there was a crash 2 days ago. First, plug yourself.
Well, my website is worldaffairsbrief.com, and I publish a weekly internet news analysis service to a subscriber base. People can subscribe for a year or 2 years or even a 1-month trial, and you can get a free sample issue of this Brexit analysis that I made by emailing me at editor@worldaffairsbrief.com.
Well, thank you for Herman, because I get everything you write, a major chunk of which I agree with. All right. Now, first of all, why was there a crash 2 days ago? What was the point of it? To show displeasure? We'll get you. I mean, why was there an over 600 point drop in the stock market and Dow? Why?
Well, I do think that there was some manipulation in the markets to precipitate a crash. It's very easy for the government to do that. They have a plunge protection team, a team of futures traders which can negatively short the market and cause these kinds of things. But as I wrote in the brief, they have to be careful. They want to penalize Britain. They want to make them feel like the world is going to come to an end if you lead the Brexit. They want to have them repent and change, or at least allow the government to undo the deal without another vote. But I predicted in the brief, I said they can't let it go down too far because the U.S. economy, for example, and even the EU economy is very fragile, a lot of negative points, and if they let it go down too far, they might not be able to pick it back up. So, as I predicted, it started to come back up today. At least the U.S. market did, and the European markets and the FTSE also showed some recovery as well.
If they actually recover all the way, well, a lot happens to your thesis. Look, why do you think the Brexit vote was so damn important? Why?
Well, it is important because of the fact that you lure people into global agreements with economic incentives, lower tariffs, ease of transit, ease of travel going back and forth. And most of the people like the EU for those things. But then there are the control laws that come in, the changing of the definition of fundamental rights, the changing of the law dictating when the government can intervene in fundamental rights. It's all through the EU Constitution. And so it's these control laws that are the real danger about globalism. And for example, I found this article from the UK Express that I mentioned. It's a leaked draft, and this answers your question, a leaked draft of a political blueprint being devised by the foreign ministries of Germany and France envisions a post-Brexit EU emerging as an undisguised continental superstate. Under the terms of the new program called the Ultimatum, countries who remain in the EU will lose the right to have their own army, criminal law, their own taxation system, their own central bank, and all those powers will be transferred to Brussels. EU member states will also lose what controls the alleged group. Anyway, they have borders, including proceeding to admitting and relocating refugees.
That's the United States of Europe. That's been the ideal for a while.
That's the reason, Barry, why Brexit people don't want that kind of control from Brussels. They want to be able to control their own destiny. It's hard enough talking about local control in London, let alone going to Brussels. And the same thing.
Let's talk. My listeners, I'm sure the majority don't know what the UK Independence Party is, nor that it won the most votes in the EU Parliament. What is it?
Well, the UK Independent Party is an anti-EU party, and they won, basically. That's what they campaigned for. You elect us and we'll get us out of the EU. And now that Cameron has resigned as of October...
Talk about that second. I'd like to know why he quit. So he had a defeat. Why did he quit? Oh, you know what? First of all, this party...
He was threatened with a vote of no confidence. Almost half of his party was against him because he was for remaining in the EU and they were against it. So he, rather than avoid the embarrassment of having a no confidence vote, he agreed to resign. But they're still trying to control who gets in to lead. And I don't trust Boris Johnson any more than I trust Cameron. I think that he could very well compromise.
Ryan, you're talking about someone entirely different. I believe his name is Nigel Farage. That's who would...
Nigel Farage is I think, the best leader for that. They don't even want him in the negotiating team dealing with the EU because they don't want him to know what they're negotiating. I mean, he is a straight talker. He's very, very savvy. That's the person I think should lead Britain. But they won't let it happen. They'll give us a compromised pro-Brexit leader like Boris Johnson.
Okay, now once again, how do they get the majority of British seats in the EU Parliament. You have to help me out here.
Well, because he's a member of the EU Parliament, Nigel Farage, and he just, if you see any of his videos online, just lambasting these bureaucrats and giving the details, he's extremely popular, even among the Parliament, at least those that are dissatisfied with the EU. So it's the same thing in France. The National Front elected and these aren't a majority. This was the most. In other words, there were several parties competing for seats in the Parliament. I think 13% are representative of the UK Independent Party, so it's not a majority enough to rule in the EU, but having 13% is the highest percentage over anybody from the Conservative or Labour Party in Britain. He beat them in their elections to the EU Parliament.
All right, listeners, this is good analysis. Now we go to the opposite, where the EU lobbying group, Britain Stronger in Europe. What the heck is Britain Stronger in Europe?
Well, I mean, they are what they are. They're trying to, stay in the EU, and
they're a front for Goldman Sachs.
That's right.
Let's go straight to it.
Yeah. I mean, Goldman Sachs, fronting for the various other central banks is the major contributor to this organization, and it was a propaganda outfit for staying in the EU. And, they ran a fear campaign. They, of course, ultimately, whether it was MI6 or, shot Joe Cox, MP, who was very popular.
Shot now, come on, that there is a pretty good accusation.
There's a dark side. There's a dark side of every one of these intelligence agencies. There's a dark side of the CIA, a dark side of the FBI, and your regular white side agents who do the legal stuff. They don't know about the dark side. They'll swear up and down. I've never seen any illegal activities, but it happens, and it happens in Britain as well. These people are in lockstep with the U.S. CIA and lockstep with the Israeli Mossad.
I'm not sure how. Okay, how?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be able to tell you the details because this is a conspiracy of power. But when you look at the way that the U.S. and Israel and Britain cover up for ISIS and the fact that they provided the arms and the impetus and the money, they have to be linked.
Yeah. I know. All right. I'm not gonna make you hear what I go through, but it ain't pretty. Okay? Now let's go to global institutions like the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the works. We're trying to prevent this vote from going to leave. How come it didn't work?
Well, it didn't work. First of all, there's a high level of satisfaction because of the unlimited immigration and refugees. Very, very unpopular within the EU and very unpopular. And so that was the driving force that counterweighed all of the fear tactics about losing your privileges in the EU and having difficulty with tariffs. And they talked about an economic problems that the pound would go down. All of those things came true. Doesn't make any difference to people. They want their borders back. They want to be able to stop and control immigration. And I don't think they're going to get it, by the way. I think it's going to be negotiated away in this EU process. And that's why it's very important of who gets elected to represent the Conservative Party.
All right. I'm trying to sort it out. Article 50, in short, you're saying they're going to play ball with the negotiating process, right?
Well, remember that if Article 50 is invoked, that means that means that it's a 2-year process unless the EU lets them out early. And
apparently they want to. They're trying to say to hell with Britain, let them leave. I've heard this opinion all over the place.
Yeah, I have too, but that's not the EU leaders. The EU leaders are part of a globalist conspiracy. They want to make Britain pay dearly so that nobody else dares do this. And so you will see them drag this thing out. They won't let them out for a full 2 years, and they're going to try to twist their arms to accept everything that they have in the EU without being part of the EU. And they can do that with this kind of arm-twisting negotiation. Remember, the EU is the sole power to decide whether or not they let Britain go before the 2-year limit. At 2 years, they have to let them go. But then, if they don't have if they don't have an agreement within 2 years, it's the same thing as if Britain unilaterally says, we quit and we're not invoking Article 50. We just want out and we'll take our risk negotiating with you face to face. That's what they should do, because if you get a decent negotiator who wants out of the EU obligations that they object to, that's what they're going to have to do. They'll run up against the 2-year deadline. They'll wasted 2 years. At least if they break now, without Article 50, they can be free instantly from all of the EU regulations and things that they disagree with, and the taxes. Over 350 billion or million pounds a year go to the EU. They want that money back. And
can be left, frankly, without any friends.
Well, you've got to remember that Britain it's a two-way street. A lot of people want to deal with Britain, and so the people would be very upset if the EU didn't accommodate Britain in many ways. And so
How so? What's Britain got that the rest of Europe needs?
Well, I mean, people like to buy British product. They like to travel to Europe. Europe is the most popular. London is the most popular EU destination. There are millions of people who are EU residents who live in London.
Won't be any more. If you put a stranglehold on Britain, a lot of things can change.
Yes, they could. Britain can play hardball too, but you got to have a hardball leader, and Cameron isn't that kind of leader. He's a globalist.
Have a hardball. All right. Besides your people's pride and dignity and the works, you've got to have something in hand.
Well, you've got to remember that Britain, has a powerful hand in the markets. They have a powerful hand in insurance. Lloyd's of London and other people that the Europeans depend upon. They have the British pound, of course, which is a major currency competing with the euro. I think that Britain could do very well without treaties with the euro. It would be more expensive to purchase products, and British products would be penalized.
They're going to be tested. Okay. They're about to face. You're going to find out what it means to be completely ostracized. That's what's coming up.
Yeah, you got to remember Austria is threatening to leave the euro as well. There's a major right-wing party there, the Freedom Party, which is also, in fact, they won the three-way contest for the election and the primaries. They won. They had the highest number of votes, and then the Green Party and the other leftist party ganged up against them to elect a Green candidate, and so that they could defeat. Otherwise, they'd be in an Austrian exit as we speak. So there's a lot of control over elections in the EU.
Britain was first to organize another vote in another country. It'll take time. Britain will be the example, all right?
Yes, it will. Now, remember the petition, by the way, the petition that supposedly had over 3 million votes to have a new referendum, what turned out to be a fraud. They were using
the vote from? I've never heard of any site getting 3 million votes in 48 hours.
No, they actually had a computer bot that got names and zip codes from people dealing with them so that they could post them as if they had signed a petition and they had not. So there's less than 300,000 legitimate petitions out of the 3 million.
I have a lot of trouble believing such a popular movement could get, in 48 hours, 3 million people to sign a petition.
That's absolutely right, Gary.
Look, it's a real problem watching logic. That's what I call it. And you pay the price. All right? That's all I'm going to tell you. I don't want you to feel sorry for me, but my Lord in heaven, what I have been going through since I wrote that article. I wrote it last week about the Sephardim, and they're all coming out. Their grandchildren are coming out. These labor Zionists use Sephardim as guinea pigs.
That's
children.
Right.
It can't be hidden anymore. It can't. It won't work.
A major scandal, and you've uncovered it, Barry.
I didn't want... You know what? My motives were good. You can't go forever lying. It catches up.
That's right.
All right, I'm going to do your last two topics. One, because I live in Florida, and I've been watching... I'm only 50 miles from Orlando. If I were a homo, I would be at the Post Club, be shot. Go ahead. You're saying it's false flag. By the way, I don't disagree, but it's a tough one to prove. What's your latest proof that Post was false flag?
Well, the major proof is the fact that we now know that he was engaging at least one security officer immediately upon entering the thing. And within 5 minutes... Within 5 minutes, there were other policemen there. That means that within 3 minutes, he was in the bathroom sequestered because of engaging this security officer. When the other policeman arrived, he was nowhere to be seen. That means that he had to kill over 100 people or shoot over 100 people in less than 3 minutes. And when you're being engaged by another person shooting at you, then there's no place to hide in that building. So that, in my opinion...
Oh, Joel, hold on a second. Because of the change of law, he had a choice of bathrooms.
Well, that's not the issue, But look, to shoot that many people, it would take at least 200 rounds. That would be 8 magazine changes. There's no way you're going to do that, even if you're a trained shooter, when you're being engaged by a security officer with a semi-automatic pistol.
Why did the cops take 4 hours to put an end to it?
3 hours, yeah.
Okay, 3. Nonetheless, why did they take so long?
Well, I think that they, personally, I think if there were that many people killed, he was not the only shooter. There were other shooters, I believe, as in other false flag. Now listen, as in other false flag operations like San Bernardino, remember there were 3 muscular mercenary people doing the shooting. The husband and wife team were not even there doing the shooting. They were patsies. So if you have that as a premise, you can see that you could have also other uniformed people there or in uniform who were in fact shooting people rather than Omar Mateen. I'm sure he was shooting some people, but there's just no way he could account for over 100 dead and wounded.
All these witnesses, no one saw another shooter. Look, you have to stick real close on this one. There's no doubt in my mind for the guy to drive from southern Florida, almost 2 hours, and pick this club, to me wasn't exactly a coincidence. Okay,
he's a gatekeeper into the club before. So this was not unusual for him to be at that club. It's not unusual for him to target the club, but I'm convinced he had an FBI agent provocateur dealing with them, exacerbating his hatred for gays. Once he got infected with AIDS, with a threesome that he was in, a gay threesome that he was involved in, according to one of the people within the threesome. He was angry that he got AIDS from a Puerto Rican, and it was a Latino night filled with Puerto Ricans that he went after.
Again, I'm going to say, look, my methodology requires, I've never heard he had AIDS and got it from a Puerto Rican. All right, what I do know is that you have 50 people, I think I shoot them. Down to earth, 50 saw one guy shooting them.
It can't happen in less than 3 minutes. It can't happen.
It did.
Well, it didn't happen from one person, right? It didn't happen from one person.
All right, why all this trouble? What's the point of it then?
The point is, this is another false flag operation that had three purposes. One, to create another wave of gun control legislation, which was immediately ready and on the table. It provided a safe, protected class in gays in all their varieties. And there was a third one. Skip my mind right now.
All right. Now, in short, you're saying, I think, it was done on purpose to make us sympathetic towards homosexual, I guess, maybe even Latinos, I'm not sure, but certainly homosexuals. That's the first purpose, right?
Yes. Well, the first purpose, I think, was gun control. I mean, that's been the major end. The second one, was turning assorted gays into a protected class free from criticism, and that's very important. And three, the protection of Muslims as a religious class that despite years of preaching jihad and intolerance against Christians and Jews, they've become sacrosanct, despite the fact of being involved in terror.
Can you imagine the utter rhetoric? And it goes through the movement. What has it taught us? We will survive. We're bigger than this. I mean, first of all, you won't survive, okay? If the idea is to get rid of you, you won't survive. But this rhetoric is all over the place. Like, it's smart to say that.
Yeah, it's amazing how much protection immediately under all the major news medias. Now, this isn't Muslims. This is just a radical single individual that kept trying to excuse Muslims. But he was Afghani.
Orlando, that we will survive. No, you were shut up. You didn't survive at all. Look, it's remarkable. Once again, I use the word rhetoric. It isn't real. It doesn't exist. If the war goes against you, you won't survive. But that's what they're saying. They're protected. Oh, gosh. All right, Joel, we had a great interview again, as usual. And this under incredibly dire circumstances. Thank you, Joel. And this has been Barry Chamish. Under incredible duress, I did a show. Thanks again, Joel.
My pleasure, Barry. Always good to be with you.
Bye, all.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.